Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Moving Past Your Radio Show. I'm your host, Juanita Dana, and we want to welcome you to tonight's show. Tonight we're going to talk about the power of no. But before we dive into tonight's show, I want to definitely open us up in prayer. You know, there's many people that are going through things. I know a lot of people that I know that I'm acquainted with that, look up to me and that I'm close to. They're going through a lot of things. I scroll through Facebook all the time, so I see so many people that are in pain and that are hurting. And so we are going to open up in prayer and asking God for, that healing and grace on this evening. Father God, we confess our need for you today. We need your healing and your grace. We need hope restored. We need to be reminded that your work on behalf of those you love constantly, powerfully, and completely. Forgive us for trying to fix our situations all on our own. Forgive us for running to all different directions and spinning our wheels to find help, when true help and healing must be found in you. Forgive us for forgetting how much we need you above everyone and everything. We come to you and bring you to the places where we're hurting. You see, where no one else is able to fully see or understand. You know the pain we've carried, the burdens, the cares. You know where we need to be set free. We ask you for healing and grace to cover every broken place, every wound, every heartache. Thank you that you're able to do far more than anything we could ever imagine. Thank you for your mighty power that acts on behalf of your children. We reach out to you and we know that you are restoring and redeeming every place of difficulty, every battle for your greater glory. Thank you that you will never waste our pain and our suffering. We love you and we need you in your Son's precious holy name. Amen. Thank you. Amen. Amen. I just felt that we just needed that particular prayer. We needed to move beyond things that we just can't see. Sometimes we go ahead and we try to do things on our own, and we wonder what happens and what goes on. So that prayer is for those who are going through any difficult situations at this present moment, who don't know where the next thing is going to happen, wondering how things are going to work out. That prayer is for you. Know that God loves you. He's got it. He's handling it. Lay it on the altar and let him have it. Don't pick it back up. So let us get into this power of no. Now, as we know, this is a Lent season, and for the last several years, I have been actively participating in Lent. And when I started participating in Lent, it was because I was at a crossroads in my life. I was a yes person. I said yes to everyone else but to God. I said yes to everyone else but where God needed me to do. I said yes to everyone else except for my own well-being. And at about 7 years ago, I was at a crossroads where I was just completely broken. And so it was around Lent time that God was urging me to seek that closer relationship with him, to seek the areas in which I needed to fix and how I had to move out of things. And it was during that time that he has revealed a lot of things that is now coming to pass. It was during that time when he started the healing process of my heart and my soul and of my mind, most importantly my mind, and allowed me to accept things as they were and to accept that he would be the only one that could fix this. Now, don't get me wrong. I have strayed along the way. I have stopped along the way, but I am still on the path. So how am I on that path? What happened? I've learned the power of no. Let me explain. No is basically a sentence in itself. It is powerful in itself. You don't need anything before it, after it, during to help it out. No is one complete sentence. However, if you look at the definition that the world gives us, it is always done in negativity. When you look up the definition of the word no, it is always, cited as negative, dissent, denial, refusal. They don't acknowledge the fact that Jesus himself set boundaries and said no. What do you mean? So in Mark, the first chapter, the 29th through the 38th verse, the New Living Translation, this is around the time where Jesus was he had left the synagogue and he was healing many people. And it reads as such. After Jesus left the synagogue with James and John, they went to Simon and Andrew's house. Now, Simon's mother-in-law was sick in bed with a high fever. They told Jesus about her right away. So he went to her bedside, took her by the hand, and helped her sit up. Then the fever left her, and she prepared a meal for them. That evening after sunset, many sick and demon-possessed people were brought to Jesus. The whole town gathered at the door to watch. So Jesus healed many people who were sick with various diseases, and he cast out many demons. But because the demons knew who he was, he did not allow them to speak. Before daybreak the next morning, Jesus got up and went out to an isolated place to pray. Later, Simon and the others went to find him. When they found him, they said, "Everyone is looking for you." But Jesus replied, "We must go to other towns as well, as I will preach to them too. That is why I came." That is a classic no. And you may say, what do you mean? Basically, he's saying to them, I get that there's many people here. However, I have been commissioned to do other things, and I can't sit here. So, no, we have to move on to the next town because that is what I came here to do. And again, as Mark opens up this account of Jesus' ministry, he portrays the Savior on a healing spree, driving out demons from man in the synagogue and healing Peter's mother-in-law at her home in Capernaum. The same evening, the people brought to Jesus all the sick and demon-possessed. The whole town gathered. Not surprisingly, everyone was looking for him. Like, hey, what's going on? Where you been? We got things going on here. We need you here, But Jesus said no. And what likely came by as a shock to the disciples, Jesus said, let us go to nearby villages so that I can preach there. For this is the purpose I've come. This is the first, but yet not certainly the last time we hear Jesus utter the word no in the Gospels. Why did Jesus say no? Clearly, he had the power to heal more people. Clearly, he had the desire to alleviate the pain in these people's lives. But while Jesus may have wanted to heal more people, he knew he had a limited time on earth to fulfill his purpose. Jesus did not come to earth just to heal and reveal his identity. He came to preach about the gospel in preparation for the passion he would perform on the cross. Jesus was crystal clear on his purpose, and this led him to say no to good things in order to focus on the essential thing he came to earth to do. If Jesus couldn't say yes to everything, neither can we. You have a limited time and resources to make the most of what you have. It is critical that we get super clear on what we believe God has called us to do, and in order to get into the habit of saying no to opportunities that can be posed as distractions. Even the really good ones distracts us from the essential mission of what God is calling us to do. Now, when you say distractions, I'm going to give you the prime example, and if I get some backlash, I'm okay with this. I'm a preface with this. I have been in ministry since I was 7 years old, and I've seen it firsthand. You become uber busy. You're at Sunday school, you at 11 o'clock service, you at afternoon service, you at evening service, you at Bible study, you at prayer meeting, but home is suffering. You're running back and forth, to and fro to make sure everyone else is good, but home is suffering. And you see it as I'm doing God's work, but you're neglecting your family. So therefore, it's learning to have a balance in place. Because what will happen is that without being able to say no, you will burn yourself out. You will be on spiritual burnout. And I know, I've been there. I've done it. And it can be the craziest thing ever imaginable. You'd be wondering, what is going on in my life? We have to remember that we are alive. We were put on here for a purpose. We can't just be like, we're going to do whatever we want, whenever we want, how we want. Now, when we think about the word no, it's an affirmation of self-explicitly acknowledged personal responsibility. It says that while each of us interacts with others and loves and respects and values those relationships, we do not and cannot allow ourselves to be influenced by them. The strength we draw from saying no, it is that underscores the hard truth of maturity. Basically, the buck stops here. No is both a tool and a barrier in which we establish and maintain a perimeter around ourselves. No says, this is who I am, this is what I value. This is what I will and will not do. This is how I will choose to act. We love others, we give to others, we cooperate with others and please others, but we are, as always, at the core, distinct and separate selves. We need to care and support that space. No recognizes that we are the agents of our own limits. For most of us, this self-in-charge and wholly responsible is powerful, is lonely, and very adult awareness. And what I mean by lonely is when you tell somebody no, sometimes they can respect it, but other times they become angry, they become hurtful, and they can become spiteful. And then now they don't want to be in your corner. They don't want you around. They are going to ignore you. They're going to shun you because you're no longer that yes person. You're no longer of use to them because they can't manipulate the situation. So sometimes when they say sometimes it can be lonely at the top, that is not something just to say, oh, well, you can't have friends, whatever. Sometimes doing the right thing, being in God's will can be lonely of humankind, but you're never alone with God. If you follow him and you allow him to direct you, he is going to put the proper people in place to surround you, to love you, to look after you, and to care for you. So that's why we can't lean to our own understanding about what, when, where, and how we should do things. Because the people we're trying to please, the people we're trying to love, the people we're trying to bring along for the journey may not be the people God's trying to have around us. We can't take everyone. Sometimes we have to go ahead to let them see the process and they can come along. Now, when we think about no, we can approach it in two steps. Forward, one giant retreat, giving in to the beloved, to the bully, to our own urges, or we can just say no. And no has two faces. No is the one we turn towards ourselves and the one that creates the boundaries between others and ourselves. The struggle to strengthen our internal no, the one we address to our own self-destructive impulses, is the struggle with which we are most familiar with. That no controls our vent of rage on the road, and I'm guilty of that. I'm sorry, but I am. Sometimes I can be driving, and it can get frustrating, but I have to control that. Your urge for the cigarette, we call that no self-discipline. The no we direct towards ourselves comes from an internal self-governor whose job it is to contain our urges and manage our priorities within an iron fist of reason. All of our lives, we may work on refining that self-governor, tweaking it, building it, shoring it up. The huge rewards of our governor's developing ability to say no, not too rigidly, but often enough and wisely too, are productive and peace of mind. The power of no is in that payoff. Now, the other no is when we are directing it at someone else. Basically, they want us to, help them with a project or a task. They want us to do something that we would normally wouldn't do, or move how God has told us not to move. And that is why with that no, you have to make it erosion proof. How can we make it erosion proof? We can learn from the story of Samson. He became romantically involved with Delilah, and that is in Judges, the 16th chapter, verse 4 that I'm referring to, but you can read the entire chapter. Her name has become synonymous with temptation. He became caught up in an undisciplined passion, opening the door that allowed him to become entrapped in a Philistine plot. Basically his enemy set him up, and they set him up good. They set him up good. It was perfect. Bad, but it was perfect. They basically paid Delilah to just lure and betray him. Basically 3 times she asked, what is the secret of your great strength? And the first time he said, no, I'm not going to tell you that. You don't need to know that. And she's like, come on, babe, let me know. How do you do it? Come on now. You could tell me. He said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it. But then finally, after the persistence, and she's wearing him down like, babe, basically she was probably saying, you love me. We love one another. We trying to build. I'm talking in lame, 2019 terms here. We're trying to build, like, you can't trust me with that information. You can't help me. You can't let me, you can't help a sister out. You can't help me. Tell me that. Come on. And you know what he did? He got worn down, and he said something. He finally said, yeah, and told her. And you know what happened? He woke up, no hair. His story is fascinating, and it's heartbreaking at the same time. Account of what happens when we stay around people who are continually trying to erode our character. If you're continually having to say no to someone who is trying to get you to compromise your values, it's probably time to say no to the relationship. True friends do not erode your commitment to what you are doing, especially when you're doing the right thing. So making sure that your no is erosion proof, sometimes you got to leave people where they are. Sometimes you have to close off relationships. Sometimes you just, got to be like, it's good. But we also have to understand and know that there's a season for relationships. And I had to learn that. Not every relationship that you're a part of is a lifetime relationship. Sometimes people are brought into your life for a season to teach you a lesson that you can learn, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. It is still a lesson that you have to learn in order to move forward in the next process of your walk. But what happens is when God shows us that relationship is over, we don't let go. We do not let go. We keep pushing. We keep, keeping them around. We don't want to, let go. We love them. They're our friends. And what happened? Well, I can say what happened with me. I'm going to be a perfect example. God was trying to remove me from a situation, and I just decided that I was going to try everything in my power to make it work, everything in my power to keep going. And what happened was it ended badly. It ended badly. He basically, when it ended, he made sure that the relationship could never be rekindled, repaired. It was a permanent, it was severed permanently. And what I know now, after I've, sought God and was asking why, that was one of my hindrances. Even though I had asked God to remove, whatever was hindering me in my life, when he was trying to remove it, I held on to it because I thought I could fix it. I thought that this is where I was supposed to be. And so time after time, I'm telling other people no, and we fighting, and I done lost my way when it came to God. I done just went completely astray. I was no longer I wasn't even on the path with this relationship. It was just, I was done. And God was like, your purpose is too important, so therefore I cannot let you continue to stray. So since you keep picking this burden back up, I'm going to make sure that you'll never have to ever talk again. And it's been 20 years, and I haven't looked back. Fast forward to 2019, when God was beginning to elevate and to move and to do things. I remember saying to God in about October of last year, I said, whatever or whoever is in my life that is going to be a hindrance to what you're trying to do in my life, I need you to remove them. And when I tell you I was prepared, but I wasn't prepared for the people he removed, for a main person in particular that he removed, because I just thought that was a solid relationship. I thought it was solid. I thought it wasn't going anywhere. And it hurt. And for me to lie and say it didn't hurt would be a lie. It hurt. But it opened my eyes to the fact that people sometimes can attach themselves to you for what they can get out of you for trying to climb the ladder of you. They're not interested in the journey. They're only interested in the spoils of the journey. So what you have to do is you have to move forward. Now, I wasn't strong enough. I learned from the first go-round that I personally wasn't strong enough to remove the people and the places and things that I suspected wasn't good for where he was taking me. So what I did is I laid it on the altar and I left it there, and I didn't pick it back up. Trust me, I was tempted. Trust me, I was tried, but I didn't do it. I didn't pick it back up. And to say that the people that he's removed, he has replaced them with amazing men and women of God. He has replaced them with people who are seeking God, who are doing better, who is growing, who wants more out of life. So I haven't lost, but he had to remove those situations so that he can grow me, so that it strengthened my no. It strengthened my power to say it, and to say it with full authority and full effectiveness, so that I didn't have to, ever doubt. So when you allow him to do it, and when you allow him to build up that self-governing and that no, it is amazing, because it moves people, places, and things out of the way that is not good for you or the kingdom. And it's not to say that your walk and your testimony will not be a testimony and a light to those that was removed, but they couldn't go with you on the journey, and they couldn't go with you on the walk. I know when I had the conversation with people, a lot of the times they're just basically are surprised when I tell them that there is biblical scripture of example of Jesus saying no and setting boundaries and practicing personal soul care. And so if Jesus is doing that, that's something we should be doing. It's no wonder we're completely, burnt out, worn out, overdone. If you think about it, Jesus had a lot of stress. He had more pressure, and he had far more responsibility than any of us. Yet he remained relaxed, joyful, and generous with people. He models and meditates for us living in God's rhythm of grace. Now, when you think about Jesus saying no and Jesus setting limitations, he accepted his personal limitations. And I know people say, what do you mean? He's Jesus. He's God. He is almighty. He's omniscient. Yes, but here on earth, he was human. So therefore, in his human state, there was personal limitations. So he couldn't be up all night. He couldn't just do whatever. He had to meet his personal needs. He had to eat healthy foods. He had to get sleep. He even took naps. He took time to relax. He did a lot of walking. Matthew 26:18, Mark 1:16, Luke 7:36 are all examples of Jesus taking his time to take out for his own personal needs. And this, too, is a number one that we fail at a lot of the times, and that is receiving support from our friends. He sought the company of friends. He enjoyed solitude. He withdrew from the crowd to go away on retreat alone or with friends. How many times do we make time for other people? And I'm not talking about, the occasional party, birthday party, family reunion. When do we really set aside time to just be like, sister, girlfriend, hey, man, let's just go away for the weekend and just meditate and pray and relax and just do nothing. I don't mean turn up, not, go to party, and that's great if you want to have a great time. But how many times do you just take time aside just to relish in what God is trying to do? How many times do we do that? I can probably count none. I go on a lot of vacations on my own. I do. However, I don't always take that time. Usually when I'm doing it, I'm ripping and running. I'm trying to see the town. I'm trying to see, what's going on, how it is, how it's bumping. I'm not taking solitude time all the time. And so when I come back, I'm always worn out. And this is another one, enjoying the moment. He left one city to go to another because he couldn't be in two places at the same time. How many of us, if we could find a way to split ourselves in two or three or duplicate ourselves or have, little robots of ourselves, clones running around, how many of us would do it? Because instead of accepting that we can only be in one place at one time, we try to cram everything in, and we're not successful at any of it. He had an unhurried pace of life. He was never in a hurry, except to go to Jerusalem and embrace the cross. Never in a hurry. Took his time, was patient. We could all learn patience, because I know I'm always in a hurry. I'm always trying to run. I'm always trying not to be late. I'm always running to the next event. But I don't usually just, take the time to just do nothing, which is not good, And we also think about Jesus saying no. He said no to inappropriate behavior a lot of the times. You know how people want to make demands on our lives? And it's always, sometimes it can be unnecessary demands. It has nothing to do with the day-to-day process. What he would do is he would withdraw from the crowds, who wanted, him. He would withdraw to have one-on-one time with the Father. He would, any of abuse. Think about how many times people can be abusive to us when they want things. And we just take it as, oh, they're just stressed. Oh, they're worried about something. No, it's not that. They're being abusive because they don't respect any boundaries because we haven't set them. We've allowed them to talk to us any kind of way, do us any kind of way, use us whenever they feel like it, and get whatever they need. And then once they're done, they're about their business. And the only time they come back to you or even acknowledge your presence is when they want something. And in Luke, the 4th chapter, 28 through 30, Jesus fought his way through the crowd that was trying to throw him off a cliff for claiming he was the Messiah. Basically, it was like, no, sir, I'm good. I'm not going to stay here for this. I've given you the word, and I'm not going to be abused if you don't want to accept it. I am good. This is another one that we need to address, entitlement. How many times people come to you and they feel entitled to your space, to your time, to your thoughts, to your trades, to the things that you put in, an effort for. They feel entitled to the fruit, the spoils of your labor. If you think about in Matthew, the 12th chapter, 46 through 50, Jesus didn't give in to his mother and brothers who tried to use their relationship with him to pull him away from the crowd he was ministering to. Think about that. Because if you think about it, they were like, that's my son. That's my brother. I'll be able to call him and have him do what I want him to do and watch me. We've all done that at some point. We use the leverage of a relationship or a business partnership that we have, and we use it to level up and get something that we want, not necessarily something that we deserve or something that we needed, but we were just doing it to showboat just because we could do it and have that relationship. So many people do it with us just like we do it with them. But do we recognize it? And we can't call someone else out on it if we don't call ourselves out on it. Now, I'll be honest, back in the day, before I was saying that I was going to do what God needed me to do, I have no problem leveling up those names and name dropping and putting in, my position on things that I wanted. I did it. However, it didn't always turn out as fruitful as you think. Because what you thought you was going to get out of it never fulfilled, never made, answered up to the thing in life that was coming. So therefore, you were still empty, and even though you had it, you didn't have it. One thing also Jesus said no to was baiting questions. When religious leaders asked him baiting questions to make him look foolish, he answered with incisive questions of his own. Basically, have you ever been around someone, and this could be even in the workplace, that they know the answer, but what they're trying to do is they will bait and switch. They'll get you to start answering, and then they'll switch it up and then try to make you look dumb. I've been there, done it. I haven't done it, but I've been there because I think that's rude and it's disrespectful and it's hurtful. But people do it all the time. We call it now bait and switch. We bait you with a question and we switch up on you, and now you're in the midst of it and you can't get your way out. And that's not always the best because now you put yourself in a situation where, okay, either way I move is going to make me look bad. So sometimes when you see those types of situations come in, politely decline. No, thank you. I don't need to answer that question. Won't answer that question. Be blessed. Manipulation. When you look at Matthew 16:23, he said no to Peter and the disciples who had an inappropriate agenda for Jesus to a political king or military warrior rather than a sacrificial lamb. Again, They tried to make it on and popping about what it was. They tried to boost it up, even though he was the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. He was the Alpha and Omega, beginning and end, all of that. When he was here on earth, he was the sacrificial lamb going towards for the cross to make reparation for our sins, so that his Father wouldn't have the wrath and just destroy us all again. He was doing that, so therefore he didn't have time for any other agenda besides that. Not at all. So it was like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to make this about what you want to make it about. No, we're not going to do it. And pride. Ooh, I am grateful that he's healed me of that one. Because when you think about it, he didn't even heal people who were too proud to trust him. He didn't even let them in the area, because the thing is, their pride kept them from being able to see him for who he was. They had to try to put it in for something more and something greater. Think about that friend, that family member, that employer, that colleague who feels like they are the end all and be all, and that you wouldn't exist without them. The company wouldn't exist without me. The church wouldn't exist without me. And when you come in contact with those type of people, when they want you to do something, you have to say no, because you can't feed that ego. You can't give light to that ego. You have to put that in a nice, deep, dark place and let that die. Because they'll try you. They'll definitely try you. But that is why we have to set boundaries. We have to set good, consistent, clear boundaries of our space. How are we going to set boundaries? We have to set personal prayer time. When you pray, go into your prayer room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Because in prayer, you're having the conversation with the ultimate, your Father, the ultimate one, the one who can make the moves, the one who can make the changes. You're telling him and you're pouring out to him the issues that you're having. And it can't be in an open arena. It has to be in an isolated, quiet time. No one else around. You can't be showboating. You have to be alone. Be honest and direct. When you want to tell somebody no, just let your yes be yes and let your no be no. That's it. You don't have to go through a whole bunch of, I could do it, but, no. You don't have to, go around and, try to pressure people or try to have them say, it is what it is. No, I can't do this. Yes, I can do it. But also, too, in order to have and understand that power of no, we have to effectively set priorities. No servant can serve two masters. He's either going to hate one or love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. And you can read that in Luke 16:13. One of the main purposes of making sure that you do not erode your no and you create, boundaries is please God, not people. We can't, the reason why we have the issues that we do have in saying no is because we're so busy trying to please people. And I know I was that people-pleasing person because I didn't understand my own self-worth. I didn't have self-love. So, therefore, I felt that in doing something for someone else, hop, skipping, and jumping, being that yes person, allowing that person to misuse me, abuse me, mistreat me, and always giving them what they needed and they wanted, I was going to be able to please them and get their love. And it failed every single time. Every single time. It failed. because you can only please God. You cannot please man, because every time you try to please man, you'll be sorely disappointed and you'll be sorely hurt and you'll be left where they left you. You know, you can't. John 5:44, how can you believe if you accept praise from one another, yet make no effort to obtain the praises that come from the only God? How is it that you can accept what your homegirl said, your homeboy said, what the person, even on social media, on Facebook, how can you accept what they say and you refuse to accept God for who and what he is and who and what he's told you you are? You are purposed, you are wanted, you are needed, and you are vital for the kingdom. So how is it you are going to listen to someone who didn't breathe the breath of life into you, who didn't form you in his own image, who doesn't cover you on a constant and continual basis? How can you listen to them over God? Because listening to them and trying to please men is always going to get you hurt. It's always going to cause issues. It's always going to cause problems. Also, obey God. What do you think? That there was a man who had two sons. He went to the first one and said, "Son, go and work today in the vineyard." He said, "I will not," he answered. But later he changed his mind and went. Then the father went to the other son and said the same thing. He answered, "I will, sir," but he did not go. Which of the two did what the father wanted? First, they answered. Being obedient, I am a firm believer, and just even in my personal life, I prefer obedience over sacrifice. Being in a position when God has told you to do something and then you don't do it, and then he puts you in a nice little holding pattern. Because if you don't want to do what he has instructed you to do, what he has shown you that you need to do, he's going to let you sit there, but then you're not going to have the luxuries of everything else. He's basically, when you tell him no and when you don't, obey him, you basically said, "I really don't want you in my life. I still want to do what I want to do." So, in essence, you're telling him no and you're telling the world yes, when it should be the other way around. Now, if you've done this, don't beat yourself up, because I have done it. Sometimes I will I'll do what I think I know is best. And sometimes I'll do what I want to do because I can be stubborn and hard-headed. And I think if sometimes we admit that, we can move forward in so many ways. Sometimes we just want to do what we want to do. Sometimes we don't want to be obedient. Sometimes we think we're okay with the consequences of doing what we want to do and not following God. And that is absolutely, definitely, on no level, the truth at all. I've been there. I know so many times you just want to make sure everybody's good. You just want to make sure that, they love you and that they're praising you and that they want you to be a part of the circle. You want that closeness. You want that relationship. But it is not worth losing God over. Just is not worth it. It is not worth it at all. So, obeying God is so important. And obeying him is, again, I'm going to keep saying this, we have to set these boundaries. We have to let people know what they need to do, when they need to do it. They can't, be all over the place. We really should start allocating regular time for prayer and for the study of God's words. But most of us is, used to the idea of tithing our money. But what about tithing our time? You know, if we fill up our schedules with demands from work and home, and then to try to, you know, find time for study, we're setting ourselves up for failure because we haven't learned that power of no. You know, before you even move any further, I need you to, you know, take some time to determine what time you will tithe exclusively to prayer and study of the scriptures on a daily basis. So what are you going to say no to? What are you going to look at your schedule and evaluate and be like, you know what, that is not going to be uplifting to the kingdom? When are you going to look at the relationships around you and begin to say no because they are interfering with your relationship with God? See, once you set those boundaries in your schedule for, you know, spiritual disciplines, you know, it can, you know, take a similar approach to budgeting your time at home and at work. Now, for me, what I've been doing is, you know, a regular routine that helps my work-life balance in check. Now, to be honest, the past couple of weeks, because things have been going on, I have not been fully effectively in it because I've just allowed myself, I'll be honest, I've allowed myself to be all over the place, you know. So normally I would get up at about 6:45, prepare. You know, I usually make sure all of my things are out the night before. My bag is packed the night before. Usually the only thing I have to do is get up and start the coffee and then, you know, just begin my prayer and meditation. But what has happened in the past few weeks is just like I keep hitting the snooze button. And so that's not good. However, you know, I get up, I get ready. Usually by 8, I can be out the door for work, get into work, and then kind of know what a routine is. You know, normally I would go to lunch, and sometimes within that lunch I would take time away to, you know, put on, you know, recharge with some gospel music or listen to some scriptures because I do have a couple of the Bible apps on my phone, and I can just, you know, have one go through a devotional, you know, pray, meditate on, you know, the rest of the day, what he needs to have me to do. You know, I'll go back to work, and then when I get home, I, you know, do some devotionals. I do an online devotional. I handle those things, but then I have my own special time that I seek him. Now, I have been guilty, again, because there has been so much that has been going on in life that I have not fully been keeping up with those, not even demands, but the things that I've put in place to keep my connection with him strong. And I can't blame anyone but myself because for the past few weeks, I have let the power of my no fade. Because when changes happen sometimes, you fall up and get caught up in the thing of, oh, my goodness, I got to help. We got to get things situated. We have to move. So my no has not been as strong as effective these past few weeks because I have taken on more than I should. However, that's changing because, like, again, I had to come to myself and recognize that my no is powerful, and I have to protect the relationship that I have with Christ at all costs. And I didn't see 2 weeks ago how it was interfering with my relationship with him, my study time, my preparation time. But in the last day or so, I've seen that. And so because many are dependent on me, I do other things, and I depend on my alone and study time with him to prepare for devotionals, to prepare to minister to others. So now anytime that is coming in question, I have to reevaluate what is pushing that, what is driving it, and what do I need to do to ensure that that doesn't happen anymore. Now, is it going to be painful to the people in which I tell no? It is. Because I, unfortunately, have enabled them to be, how should I say, dependent on the skill set in which I bring to the table. They've become dependent to the point where that they don't even think that they need to have that skill set because I've always done it. Are you in a situation like that? Whether it be at work or at home, where you feel like you just don't have any out, you can't take a vacation day, it seems like it's all tumbling on you and all the work always comes in on you? Is there a skill set or something that you know someone else can do, but because you have negated your no and not utilized its full potential and power, it's now on you, and then your relationships, even with Christ and family and friends, are now non-existent because you didn't learn to say no. You know, we have to understand and determine what's essential. What is essential in our day-to-day? You want to know what I say is the most essential for me? It's prayer time. And why do I say that? Because in prayer time is when I can get full instructions from God on what I'm supposed to do, how I'm supposed to start my day and how I'm supposed to end my day. How am I supposed to prepare mentally, emotionally, and physically? You know, how He's going to guide me through the potholes and the hazard signs that are coming up for the day. But if I miss that prayer time, I'm going into the situation blind. It's like driving the car blindfolded. And we know what can happen with that. You're going straight into a wall. Straight into a wall. No and, ifs, or buts about it. So, you have to decide what are the essential things in your life. Prayer, family, you have to eat, you have to bathe, you have to rest. Because if you don't eat, if you don't get proper rest and sustenance, you're no good to nobody. You're even no good to the kingdom because you're not taking care of your health. So what is essential in your day-to-day? You may say, I don't really know what that is. This is when you go in prayer and you ask Him to show you. You ask Him to reveal it to you. You ask Him, you're like, Lord, what am I missing? What do I need to do? I need to have a closer and better relationship with you. I need to find out what is that hindrance. Why can't I say no? Let's start there. Why can't I say no, God? Why is it so difficult for me? Why is it so hard for me? Why do I feel like once I say no that I'm going to lose everybody and everything and they're not going to want anything else to do with me? Why am I so afraid of losing those people? Why am I so afraid of not walking in the purpose that you want me to be in? And I'm telling you to ask God these questions because I ask Him a lot of the times these same questions when I come up with fear and doubt, or I, have decided and I've done something out of His will and He's, brought me back into a way to remind me of what I'm supposed to do. And sometimes I have to ask these questions. I have to ask, Lord, what is it that I missed that you were showing me that I was too busy, too preoccupied to pay attention to? What are those things? And you have to be still to listen to Him to receive what it is He's given to you, to receive what He's telling you, to receive how He wants you to move and to operate. So I need you to embrace your power in the word no. I need you to walk with full authority that when you say it, you're going to say it in love. Because no isn't a negative thing. No is power. No is love. No is care. We have to learn how to say no so that God can say yes to us sometimes. We got to know what not to bring into the sacred space of our relationship with Christ so that He can continue to pour into us and to just love on us, to build us, and to prepare us to minister for the kingdom. But we have to embrace the word no in its full and it is totality. No is a special word. No is the best word it is. I'm going to tell you, when I accepted and fully embraced the word no, it is freeing. Because when you say no and mean it, and you're saying it with love, it is, nobody's really going to come back at you, because then they don't know really what to say. Because when you say no, and don't offer any excuses, don't offer any, oh, well, maybe we can do this or whatever. I know so many places that say, when you say no, offer an excuse or offer an alternative. 99% of the time, there is no alternative. No is the only answer. And sometimes what we do is we allow alternatives for everything, so therefore we don't know when and not to offer them. And so we have to stop doing that. Like the word says, our yes is our yes, our no is our no. Point blank and period. Embrace your no. And once you embrace your no, you will see the relationship with God flourish. You will see it grow, because what you've done is you've made room for Him. So don't say yes when you really mean no. Say no and say it confidently. Say no and say it in love. Because when you say it in love, when you say it in confidence, and you know you have the full backing of the Almighty, there is nothing that can't be done. There is absolutely, absolutely nothing that cannot be done when we embrace the power of saying no. So will you say no? Will you say no to all the things that keep you bound and keep you distracted and keep you not in line with what God wants you to be? Will you make that ultimate decision to say no to unnecessary, untimely, trying times? Will you say no? Because if not, you'll always be frustrated. You'll always be hurt. And you'll always be wondering, where am I in God? Where am I in the world? How am I supposed to navigate and move in this earth? Embrace the power of no. It is the ultimate place in God. I want to thank you for listening to the Moving Past Your Radio Show this evening, The Power of No. Make sure, come on by our Facebook page to join the conversation, to access any show notes and some bonus content. If you're on iTunes or Spotify, you can search for Moving Past You and find us right along there, or you can reach us on the website. I want you to always remember to be kind in your word, in your thought, and in your deed. Thank you for joining us. Join us next week at 7 p.m., same time, same locations. Love you a lot. Have a wonderful evening.